All right, moving along to our third topic: universal wealth principles. When it comes to generational wealth and economic resilience, the Jewish community offers time tested principles that many others could benefit from circulating the dollar within the community to prioritizing education, trade skills, and ownership. These strategies aren't exclusive, but they are intentional. We'll highlight the mindset and habits that have empowered Jewish families to build lasting wealth across generations. Let's dive in.
All right, so last week, ladies and gentlemen, we covered the first four principles. So now we'll go ahead and drop the video, cover these next four principles, then we'll go ahead and dive into some dialogue.
What makes Jewish people so wealthy? In my last video, I said that Jews make up only 2.4% of the US population, but about 1 in 3 American millionaires are Jewish. Check out my last video if you haven't seen it. And after decades of working with many Jewish clients when I was an investment advisor, here are 4 more wealth principles I learned from them. Number 5, they focused on being rich rather than looking rich. They weren't out there flexing. They didn't feel the need to be flashy. They drove reliable cars, not all luxury cars. Why is that? Because they cared more about being wealthy than looking wealthy. Number 6, they were selectively extravagant and prudently frugal. Here's what I noticed. They dropped serious money on education, on experiences, on their investments, or giving to a cause that they really cared about. But some of the same people would also clip coupons at the grocery store. They knew when to spend big and when to hold back. It wasn't about being cheap. It was about being intentional. Number 7, they saw sales as a noble profession. Many of them encourage their kids to go into sales. Why? Because sales creates opportunities. It teaches communication, it builds resilience, and it uncaps your income. They didn't look down on the sales profession. They saw it as a gateway to entrepreneurship and financial freedom. Lastly, they practice group economics. They did business with each other a lot. It wasn't exclusionary because they still work with me and others. I mean, I had a lot of Jewish clients, but they had a deep commitment to supporting their own. They hired each other, they referred each other, and they funded each other's business ventures. And that's something we need more of in the Black community. Not just to support each other, but to circulate the dollar. You see, you don't have to be Jewish to apply these principles. Wisdom is wisdom, and it'll work for anybody.
Yeah, I like that last sentence is like
Powerful.
was paramount. Like you don't gotta be Jewish. This is not just, relegated to Jewish community. Like, it's wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone can implement wisdom
Yep.
and benefit from it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what was the first thing you said?
Focus on
Being rich rather than looking rich.
right, and that's actually the most crucial piece of wisdom I believe people in America overlook. The average American overlooks that piece of wisdom by 10. We see it every day
Yeah.
because it'd be funny to me when we live in Los Angeles, so we have a lot of people from a lot of places, but it blows my mind when people come and they're just like, oh, I got they like I said, they're adorning themselves in all these luxury labels.
Mm-hmm.
They're driving these luxury vehicles, and it's like, and they're walking around with this air of supremacy in a sense
Mm-hmm.
because of what they wearing and what they driving. But it's just like, to truly wealthy people, to truly rich people, like, you guys look like fools.
And I've been around some wealthy people. And
Hookahs,
and
hokas.
and I remember one time when
They
you
wear
were
hokas.
out in the when you were working, and you took a picture of this woman, the older woman, and how I think everything was Chanel,
Hmm.
but it wasn't the flashy version
Oh,
of
I know. I remember
Chanel.
right. It was an old white
It
lady,
was, yeah.
and she was looking bad. And it was, and like I said, I noticed that it was Chanel, but it wasn't the regular
It
Chanel.
wasn't the flashy
It wasn't
Chanel.
the flat. It was like some real clothes.
Yeah.
But I just look. I remember that day, and I was just like, man, that older woman looks nice. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But it was more so nice from the perspective of she looked like she was rich,
Mm-hmm.
but she looked like but also that she believed that she was rich and that she embodied the traits though.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that she was just rocking and stuff to try to like look it. She
Mm-hmm.
was being it.
Yeah, she was being it. That's why you can
It
when
was a
you like
difference.
when you are rich, you can get the Chanel shirt that don't have the big C on it. You know what I mean? You can get the Gucci suit that don't got Gucci coming down the sleeve
Mm-hmm.
or all across the back Gucci. You know what I mean, it's like if you're rich, you're rich, but you don't have to put value in looking rich.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like looking rich, who does that benefit? I had that concept about vehicles. Like you want to get these rims and
Mm-hmm.
you want to adorn your car with all this. You want to have a Mercedes Benz, whatever the case may be, but you're in the car most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole thing that you're putting value in, you don't even take part in. That's for the people that when you driving down the street and that car pass by,
Right.
they're getting the benefit of that.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing your rims spin, or seeing
Facts.
how the rims coordinate with your license plate and the tint on your windows. Like you're not getting no gratification out of that.
At all.
That don't help you.
Right.
You're in the same car behind the same steering wheel, pushing the same gas and brake pedal to get the vehicle to move.
Exactly.
So therefore, putting all this value now, if you have it and that's just the car that you want, that's different.
Mm-hmm.
But when you make it a priority to get this car, so it make you feel better, or you think it validates you, or make you better than the next person or something. That's where we lose it at. That's where we go astray at. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's funny. Everybody that I know who focuses on being rich as opposed to looking rich, they always look regular.
Yep, you
They
have to.
drive regular cars.
Mm-hmm.
Now they still got the Benzes. They
Yeah.
still got the Teslas. They
Yeah.
still got it.
Mm-hmm.
But on a day to day basis, you would never know.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
You would never know.
No, you wouldn't. And that's how these other communities are winning, because their focus is not on looking rich. Like we our community, we thrive on looking a certain way. Like it's all about looks.
Trying to be the it
I,
person.
we can't
Check out the
be.
previous topic, ladies and
I'm
gentlemen.
just
You'll
saying,
get
like
it.
it always
It always comes
circles
full
back
circle,
right,
right?
doesn't it? Yeah, like everybody wants to be this it person with charisma and
Mm-hmm.
personality. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Instead of being that person of substance, instead of alluding to it or portraying it or projecting it, how about be that?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And that's where we stumble on. We stumble on that a lot, because I had to get out of that. When you're younger, you want to be in the Jordans, you want to have Louis Vuitton, Gucci, whatever the name brand is out there. And then it is the level of maturity
Yes.
that you have to come to, like
Mm-hmm.
as you grow older. And like, why am I paying $5,000 for this outfit, and it's the same thing that this outfit costs $50? you
Right.
know and I'm a one. I have mastered, like, it ain't what you wear, it's just how you make the outfit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about how you put it together. I'll be happy going in a Ross and any of these stores where, and I put something together and I stand right next to somebody with a $10,000 outfit on, and I bet you I get more compliments, because it's all about how you put together and how you carry yourself, and who you are.
Mm-hmm.
The outfit shouldn't wear you. You wear the outfit. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? That you don't accent what the outfit is. The accent only highlights who you are.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? It brings who you are out, not make you what you're trying to be because of what you got on. Like that's not how that go. But
So again, focus on being rich and wealthy, not just trying to look rich and wealthy. And that kind of you just kind of talked about the next point, which was what was it, being selectively extravagant and prudently frugal.
yeah,
So to your point, you know how to you've developed the ability now to go to Ross That's you being prudently frugal.
Yeah, yeah.
As opposed to being selectively extravagant by just everything I buy has to be luxury.
I gotta be on Rodeo Drive. I gotta get the new shit soon as when it's dropped.
My socks,
I
my
got
slippers,
right,
my underwear, my
right,
pants, my shirt, my coat.
right,
And cause I be just looking at people when I see it, I just shake my head because I'm just like, oh, you just don't know.
right.
And it's like, y'all got to start understanding that y'all ultimately are marks. Y'all are
Mm-hmm.
making yourself out to be marked, like for cons, and conman by mark, I
Mm-hmm.
mean. Because again, when y'all are walking around looking rich as opposed to being rich, focusing on being extravagant as opposed to prudently frugal, like you said, business sees that.
Oh yeah.
And don't let the wrong person see you, because again, they're gonna be able to. They said they're gonna be able to manipulate you into buying some dumb shit 10 times easier than they can somebody else,
Of
because
course.
they know that again, you focused on making sure that you have this look.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
wrote I gotta pull it up real quick because it goes
You put your pants on one leg at a time.
it ties in perfectly with what I just said. But it was a quote I made recently
Mm-hmm.
on the Facebookers, and it was I said it was something about the ego and how that makes you.
I remember that picture.
Which one?
Scroll up over here. Yeah.
Oh yeah, back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it at? I put a quote here. It said I said the stronger the ego, the weaker the self. So when you're focusing on looking rich, that's just your ego really at play,
It
because you're
damn
just trying to
sure is.
like look at you're trying to make yourself look a certain way because you want people to perceive you as having a certain status that you think is going to make them treat you a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Overcompensating.
Overcompensating, right? But
Mm-hmm.
again, all that really is a representation of is your weakness.
Mm-hmm.
But around the wrong people, you go get got. You know what I'm saying? You go
Mm-hmm.
get taken advantage of. You go get exploited because again, they already know you. They see you. They see you from a mile away because they can see that big ass Gucci and Chanel.
And they know you're a fool.
Right.
And then they said, then we read somewhere where they make certain clothes for certain demographics,
I
and
have
then
read that.
yeah,
So it's just like there's two Gucci's in the sense. There's
right.
two Louis. There's
Mm-hmm.
two Chanel's. And there's a version of it that they sell to people who just want to look rich.
The flashy
And then there's a version that they sell to people who actually focus on being rich.
and on quality.
It's the
Because
quality, right?
sometimes these more expensive items are better quality.
Hmm.
To be fair, what I'm saying, that's what you're usually buying when you have the means to buy it. You're buying better quality,
Hmm.
and so therefore, Gucci's going to make a T-shirt. They're gonna have one plain T-shirt like this, and then they got another T-shirt that got Gucci here, Gucci there, and Gucci on
Hmm.
the back. And of course, you know the one that we tend to get. But it also said it was select. You have selective, um, be selectively extravagant in these areas. One was education.
Yeah.
One was in your experiences,
Yeah.
which was very
So
good.
going on trips or
Yeah, just
things like that, or even
yeah,
places around town.
yeah, just getting out and exploring your horizon, and going to places you never been, learning things you never learned, or you didn't know, and just experiences.
Hmm.
Experiences doesn't necessarily mean traveling.
Yeah, exactly.
I
It
just
could be
want to be
going to a
clear.
museum. It
It
could be
could
going to a
be
play.
or accomplishing some of your fears, some things that you know was
Fear
scared
of
to do,
heights.
heights or jumping out of plane, or experiences. You never been to the beach, you never been to a Broadway play, or you never whatever. Those are experiences. Um, Extravagant in your investments.
Hmm.
That was another one. So where that's where I'm at. I'm learning, like, anytime I get extra money, a large income, that goes to investments. That goes, the majority of that goes away to my high yielding accounts, investments, and things like that. That's what I'm like strictly extravagant about. And those things are just like some of the things that compared to being extravagant over things that don't have any value or no meaning,
Right.
or things that's just just going to get attention to you, which, like you said, your ego.
Hmm.
That's an ego driven mentality, and you got to be prudently frugal.
Yep.
That means you got to know when when to buy, when you got to know when to go to Costco and buy the pack of steaks instead of going to Steak 48 every night because you got a
Right.
taste for steak. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? You got to know when to, like we just said, go see what Ross got. Before you go marching down Rodeo Drive. It's like, you got to know when to be frugal and when you're not. And then if you want to be extravagant, you want to make sure you're being extravagant when education, your experiences, your investments, those things and those areas.
So before we move on to the next one, I remember growing up, I used to watch my granny be prudently frugal.
Hmm.
But when it came to things like education, she spared no expense.
Oh, your granny got money. I already know.
She spared no expense, and it was like, but as a little kid growing up, having being indoctrinated to be a consumer, I'm looking at it like, oh, you never buy us toys and video games because she never bought that kind of stuff for us, like ever, like.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came to education, bro, we always have the best top of the line of everything, like no matter what,
Oh
you know
yeah,
what I'm
they
saying?
family got it going on. Like if you're a female out there, you better try to get that Crawley last name. I'm trying to tell you because they got it going all over you. They own half the properties in the city. They got
I wouldn't
eight.
say half. We own enough. We own enough.
Far
But
as we talk about, far as where we come from and what we're used to,
yeah,
they got the city on lock.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
But
Anytime.
but see, and that's the crazy part because growing up, I vividly remember people looking at who my grandparents were and assuming that, oh, he's rich. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody, the boys and the girls, like
Mm-hmm.
always, like that was really he's the rich kid. Now
Mm-hmm.
to me, I'm looking like, what you talking about? Like
Right.
I'm going to the same school as y'all.
Right.
I'm wearing the same clothes as y'all. I'm eating the same lunches as y'all. I'm going to the same field trips as y'all.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I go to my mom's house when I leave here. I don't go to their house. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But that was like my first education and this perception of people thinking that you're rich and then expecting something for it because again the girls would expect me to treat them differently than every other guy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because there was this perception that I was this rich kid, but it was like what is Shaq? Was it Shaq? He was just like I'm rich, like y'all poor.
Oh, talking about his kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I like, and it was just like I got that learn. I learned that lesson very early in my childhood being with my grandparents, and it was a good lesson for me to learn because now it's like all right, as an adult, I've lived that life. You know what I'm saying? I've never, like I said, strived to be extravagant in that regard. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I've never did that. I've never tried to be the guy who was running around with all the labels. Even though I had it, because I remember for another example, moving day when I went to college. That first day, we were all moving in, and
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that for some reason, like my carts was chunkier than most of the kids' charts. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
carts coming in. You know what I mean? And then I remember um, we got moved all in, and then we went to like Costco, like you just
Mm-hmm.
said, and we bought a whole nother round of stuff, moved all that stuff in.
Wow.
Then my dad came and went to another store, got some more stuff, moved all that in.
Wow.
So while everybody was finished moving in, like literally I was still moving stuff in, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Still going to get stuff and people noticed it. They
Of course.
they was looking like, wow, you know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
who's this? But again, once the dust settled and now, my parents are gone, my grandparents are gone. Now that's when everyone starts coming to my
Yeah.
dorm room like,
Everybody.
"Hey, what's up, bro?"
Hey,
I
who's this guy?
I noticed everyone there were some people who were extra friendly, extra nice,
Mm-hmm.
both the guys and the girls. And but again, looking back on it, those people who were just trying to befriend me and with the hope that, it would my quote unquote perceived
Transactional.
Richmond, yeah, my perceived richness would go to, would spill off onto them on some level, shape, form, fashion. But again, mentally I didn't think like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I never, behaved in that manner to where I was the guy who was like, oh, drinks on me or, Denny's on me. But then there were people who was doing that.
Yeah.
The kids who didn't have it, you know what I mean? And that's what I began to notice. That was kind of like one of my first life lessons in college was realizing like, wait a minute, like y'all just recklessly spending money like it
Yeah.
grows on trees. And then
Yeah.
there's this expectation for me to do it for them, and I was just like, nah.
Yeah.
And then of course they're oh, you just selfish, or you just, because again, especially the young ladies, I experienced that with them more than the guys, of course. But
Hmm.
it was just kind of like interesting and weird to me because I was just like damn, do people really be acting like that? Because that was my first time away from home,
Hmm.
around strangers in that regards, and I just remember thinking like, wow, like all these things that I've been being told and the story of my life is still true to this day. It still rings true because even again, going back to being in grade school, like people seeing my grandparent, specifically my papa, he pulling up. And they, oh, your grandfather is rich. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He looks rich, but it was just like, yeah. At that point in his life, he began to quote unquote look rich because he had spent his whole life focusing on being rich to put himself in the position to actually have it, to then be able to spend it on whatever he wants, including his grandkids.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a total different dynamic, and it's almost like the blueprint, that we're talking about. Like your grandfather is a living example
Hmm.
of all the things and principles that we've been talking about
Everything,
as it
bro.
relates to wealth and finances. Going on to the next point. But this was an interesting one too because, well, let me state it first. The principle is they value sales as a noble profession,
Yes.
and that was interesting to me because nowadays and even when I was coming up, working in sales was like a negative connotation,
Hmm.
and I still don't like. I don't want to sell shit. I don't want to be trying to beg you to buy nothing.
But see, that's why we view sales as
Yeah.
a negative thing, because we have this mindset,
Yep.
whether it's because we were told it or we just misinterpreted that,
Hmm.
oh, I want to be trying to sell something, trying to convince people to buy something that they don't want. But the reality is that was our misinterpretation of it, because as they said, being in sales is the gateway to entrepreneurship, but it also too doesn't put a cap on your income.
Yeah, it creates opportunity. They
Hmm.
said it says it teaches communication, it builds resilience, and like you said, uncaps your income.
Hmm.
What are like the four principles of sales? And then once when he explained, the creating of opportunity and teaching communication, I started to look at it and I was like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense because when you're in sales, now you have a commodity, you have something tangible.
Hmm.
We're not talking about necessarily selling something for someone else, like at uh, Gucci and you selling the Gucci clothes. We're talking about sales, far as sales coming from the fruits of your own labor, or your family business or something like that. Like, so when you have a product or a commodity, now you could barter, you could trade. I
Hmm.
can come to you and say, I'm I got 5 barrels of corn,
Hmm.
that I picked, and I see you over there. You got some wheat over there. I give you a barrel of corn for a barrel of wheat, and then through that, that takes communication.
Hmm.
You learn how to negotiate. You learn how to barter. You learn how to do things, and it builds resilience. You know how to sustain and get through hard times or whatever the case may be, and it uncaps your income because however far you want to take your product or whatever it is that you have, it's totally up to you,
Hmm.
and there's no limits on that.
Hmm.
Everybody could want a bushel of corn by the time you finish.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But also too, we have to learn how to sell and
Yeah.
realize that selling isn't just about trying to force people to buy stuff. It's really ultimately about you being able to tell stories, and only tell those stories to people who want the stories told to them. So it's like, again, if we're selling cups, everybody doesn't want a cup, but there are people who do want cups. So part of your job as a salesperson is to only be having sales conversations with people who actually want
Mm-hmm.
what you have to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to learn how to quote unquote prospect.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn how to qualify your
Mm-hmm.
prospects. You have to learn how to quote unquote deliver, your sales message to them. And
Mm-hmm.
you got to learn how to close them so you can
Yep.
collect the money. But you're not going to learn that if you just operate off this false belief that, or this limiting belief, I should say, that sales, like again, snake oil salesman. And a lot of the reason why sales gets a bad rep too is because of the media that we expose our to on a day to day basis.
Mm-hmm.
The movies, the TV shows, the magazines. There's always some snake oil salesman.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's always some swindler. There's always some con man that's
Right.
put on the screen or put in front of us as this salesman, this con artist, and then so we looking at that thinking like, and then to your point, that's why I say, "Ooh, I don't want to do that." You know what I'm saying? Because that's
And
that's wrong. That's
and then we
bad.
also seen the sales under the connotation of us working in like a department store. Those type of sales. We really haven't grown up in a generation where we're selling a commodity that we created.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, now things again like that. There's more entrepreneurs and business owners. T-shirt makers and fashion designers, and like this is becoming more prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, the general consensus is we really didn't have our own product to sell. And then when we did have things to sell, we kind of moved away from that,
Mm-hmm.
to chase corporate,
Mm-hmm.
to be in a corporate standing where we ain't doing nothing but making the person at the top more richer. You know what I'm saying?
But the
So,
funny part about sales, Will, is also too is that even though a lot of us don't like it, we all engage in it on a day to day basis
yeah,
because we got to sell ourselves.
yeah,
Like no matter what, we have to sell ourselves. If we
true
want
that.
that new job, we want that new promotion. If we want this new friend, we want this new girlfriend or boyfriend. Well, no matter what we want, we have to sell ourselves in order to get it.
True that. True
And
that.
so that's what I'm saying. We just have to start reimagining our relationship with sales,
Mhm.
both on a personal and professional level, so that we can just start develop a healthy attitude, belief, and value around sales,
Mhm.
so that we can then start carrying that forward by developing the proper skills to do it properly, and
Mhm.
then go out into the world and do it and hunt. Because to your point, we when you come up when you're a creator, anybody that's creating, so like technically us right now, we are creating a product in this
Mhm.
show. And in order for this show to go from where it's at to where it's going to require a level of us selling ourselves
Right.
to whoever we identify as qualified prospects for, as buyers
Mhm.
for our product. And so again, we have to go hunt, and that's really what it means to be a hunter. Like John Hope Bryan says, every organization needs the hunt. I mean, a hunter. They need a skinner. They need a cook. And I will add one more. They need a cleaner. But that
Mhm.
hunter, that's the person that goes out into the world and kills,
Mhm.
aka sales. They're the
Mm.
rainmaker. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Nothing happens if you ain't taking down no carcasses.
Right.
You know what I mean? Nothing happens. Your skinners, your cooks, and your cleaners can't do anything until you bring
Till
home
you
the
bring
bacon.
something home,
You know what I'm
you
saying?
gotta bring us home something to cook,
You gotta bring it home. So
skin, and clean.
everybody, every man, every woman, in a sense, has the ability to be that hunter for themselves and for their family,
Mm.
aka the organization. And the sooner you begin to understand that about yourself and your natural ability to do it, the quicker you can get to uncapping your income, uncapping your ability to tap into unlimited opportunities, so that you can create the life that you want for yourself.
In a way that it builds resilience. I just thought about it because everyone's not gonna buy what you're selling.
Mm-mm.
Everyone's not
Even
going
the
to.
people who need it.
And yeah, everybody's not going to sign up for your subscription. Everyone's not going to want to date you, marry you, be in partnership with you, friendship with you, whatever the case may be. It's not a guarantee. Yes, 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 yes. I'll buy how many where I sign. You're going to get no's,
Hmm.
based on a litany of things. Whether it's something that you projected or didn't project.
Hmm.
You're going to get no's. You're going to get rejection, and through rejection, resilience is created and built.
But before we move on, one of the reasons why we have a problem with sales is because, like you alluded to, the rejection component of it.
Yeah.
But that rejection is only taken on so hard by us because we're still stuck in that school system mentality of having to be perfect, having to have the right answer, and having to be perfect. So that's another thing we got to work ourselves out of. Like, we got to get ourselves out of that mentality of thinking that if we try to sell something and then it doesn't work, or we don't make the successful sale, that now we're a failure and we need to pack it up. It's just like, nah, you just gotta understand that you're just there as a salesman to plant the seed, and the seed, once the seed is planted, it is going to blossom if the person legitimately needs what you have to sell. Because again, just because they don't buy it on the first day does not mean they're not gonna buy it down the line.
Right.
And that's what I think we fail to understand too about sales is we get so adamant about making that sale on that first attempt, and then if we don't, then we get rejected. So now we're just like, oh, okay, never go back. But it's just like, nah, like they just didn't want it. They didn't need it right now. But how many times have somebody tried to sell something to you that you didn't need it, that you didn't buy it on the first or second or the third time, but that fourth time you called them like, hey, you still got them widgets? Yeah, I need one right now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I need 3 of them.
Yeah, I need 3 of them. You know what I'm saying? And now you like, oh shit. But again, if you hadn't even made the efforts to at least plant that seed that first time,
Absolutely.
then you never would have been able to get that sale when it came to that fourth opportunity.
Absolutely.
So learn how to sell, ladies and gentlemen. There's a good book I recommend. It's called Story Brand by Donald Miller. And that book is going to help you learn how to tell stories that make people want to take advantage of whatever it is you have to offer.
Oh, cool.
Including
Excellent.
you.
So there's one more. There's one more gem here. The eighth and final attribute of this community. They practice group economics. Deep commitment to supporting each other. Not that they just only support each other, they support other people, but definitely starting with supporting each other primarily first and intentionally.
Yes.
A lot of these topics, surround intentions. Having intention. If you go back to the tariffs, the intention is to prosper the American people. When you go to relationships compared to courtship, to dating, courtship is more intentional. And then as we get to this topic, having wealth is intentional. You have to do things with intention to get the results that you want. And this practicing group economics is a huge component that, this community, and we're just using the Jewish community as an example, they have really like taken advantage of that.
Yeah.
They really like, even if you go into the Jewish communities, you can see all the Jewish stores like in the same little area, and they all just all within their community. If it's something they want to eat, they go on right there. If it's a furniture store, light fixture store, boom, 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 we all going there. You don't see a whole bunch of Jews traveling to Target. You don't see a whole bunch of Jews in Macy's. You don't see a whole bunch of Jews at the Fox Hills Mall. For what? They don't need. We got our own community right here, and we're self sufficient and self supportive. And that's huge that they circulate the dollar in their own community. What was the number for that? How often is the dollar circulates?
Let's pull it up real quick. Let's find, because that is important information.
I think it said 54 times.
Does money circulate in the Jewish community? Somebody been searching for it. So it says a study cited by the city of Detroit.gov indicates that a dollar circulates 20 days within the Jewish community. This is significantly longer than the estimated circulation time of 6 hours within the black community and 30 days in the Asian community, according to the same study.
City of Detroit. I questioned Detroit.
A Black Star Project study on the racial wealth gap calculates that a dollar circulates 6 hours in the black community, 20 days in the Jewish community, and 30 days in the Asian community.
Okay. Yeah, so pretty much, like it circulates, and that's what we have to do.
So we got to go from 6. So We got to take it in baby steps. As far as Americans of African descent, 30. We got to go from 6 hours to 24. We can start there.
We got to build our communities though.
Well, it's great. It's funny you say that. I saw somebody recently say, there's no such thing as black communities. There's only black neighborhoods.
Right.
And when he said that, I kind of had to really sit down real quick and think about that, because I was like, you know what, brother?
You're absolutely right.
You're absolutely right.
You're absolutely right.
We don't have a community. We don't have quote unquote black communities.
No, we don't.
We only have black neighborhoods.
Yep.
That's it.
Because a community will entail a school, a medical center, groceries,
The basics.
appliances,
The basics,
fixtures,
right.
handymans, like your basic necessities to function is what you will get out of your community. We have to go outside our community, and then even the things that's in our community are not feeding us. The 7-Elevens and the hair technicians and nails and like all that stuff is where we give out the liquor stores and stuff like that. That's where we give our money to. They get our first dollar.
And it's crazy how we traded in group economics for social integration.
Yep. Yeah. That's wow.
We literally traded in group economics for social integration because we wanted to sit at their restaurant.
Because we had the group economics.
We had it.
We go, and then a lot of people say
We were forced to have it.
And this is the argument that I push back on, because they say, yeah, we had it, but what happened? They burned it down and they destroyed it. Even though that might be true, they can't burn it down now. That won't fly now. So what's stopping us from creating it? If we did it once, we could do it again. If people that were that much closer to slavery and Jim Crow and all those segregated laws and stuff, if they were able to flourish and create these communities, how is it that we can't do it now in 2025?
Because we still stuck into that white man's ice is colder than ours, and trying to aspire to live like these affluent Europeans.
Yeah.
Like that's our problem now. But that's why we traded in group economics for social integration. Because again, we are trying to live like them. We want them to recognize us as their equals, but it's like it's never gonna happen. So it's just like, stop trying. Like, let's just focus on us. Let's just focus on, like you said, rebuilding our communities. Let's just focus on rotating our dollars. And then again, just because we rotate our dollars within our community doesn't mean we go outside of it. But we gotta start prioritizing ourselves.
Yeah.
We gotta start prioritizing our own communities. And until we do these things, then we will continue to be the laughing stock of the world, in America specifically, when it comes to finances.
Yeah.
Because we just don't get it, and every other group gets it. Especially now, going back to the previous topic, our relationships with each other. We cannot sustain a quote unquote generational wealth, going back to last week's principles, if every generation is striving to use the money that they're earning to just YOLO, you only live twice, because hey, I had to do it. I had to get myself out the mud. So the next generation got to figure out, just like I got to figure it out. So it's like we're not even leaving any stepping stones for the next generation to quote unquote be able to continue the work of the previous generation. And we wonder why we're so far behind. And why everybody else is so far ahead. So it's like, we have to start prioritizing these things in our children's youth. Yes. So we have to start making sure they get good at math when they turn 2 years old. I saw a video recently of a little girl. She couldn't have been no more than 1 or 2, but she was, reciting her ABCs. But again, A is for apple, B is for ball, C is for cat. Like, that's how we start changing the narrative for ourselves. We have to go away from A being apple to A being an asset. Yeah. B being a bank account. You know what I'm saying? C being cash flow.
Cash flow, right.
D being dividend.
Yeah.
Like, we have to start instilling this language and this vocabulary into our youth early and often, so that as they are growing up in this world that they live in, and they're getting all the psychological welfare of consumerism jammed down their throat, they at least have something to balance it off of, or bounce it off of. You know what I mean? It ain't just like you said, buy, 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 buy.
Right.
It's oh, okay, well, yeah, I know I can buy, but again, I'm developing financial discipline. You know, oh, I know what an asset is. I know what a liability is now. You know, I know all these things to where, you know, now I'm in a better position to be able to make better financial decisions for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But wealth begins at home. So it begins with us as the adults. So it's going to require a sacrifice from us, ladies and gentlemen. If you
For
look,
sure.
if it's going to require a sacrifice from us. So yeah, it's going to probably require a sacrifice of a generation or two for us to build those first stepping stones for the next generations to come. Now that don't mean that we not go enjoy ourselves and have a good life. Again, we just got to implement these principles. So again, being selectively extravagant and prudently
Frugal.
frugal. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying, when it comes to certain areas of life. So again,
Focus on being rich and rather than looking rich. You know,
prom season right now. Your kid don't need all these extravagant clothes and
a
vehicles,
horse,
right? And this show called the Champagne
a
Party.
Lamborghini.
And it's, you know what? Anyone was crazy? I saw one of my classmates. So we've been out of college for at least 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
She's still reminiscing off of her champagne party.
Champagne party.
She's still reposting pictures like, oh yeah, it's prom season. I remember. So it's like we gotta elevate ourselves from these low level desire for these quote unquote memories.
And it's like my mind went when I seen all these champagne parties and all this extravagant waste of money. I said, I wonder if they know that they son or daughter can't read or write.
Yes, they don't.
So like you cannot be spending all this money as a parent to get all this extravagant, balloons and step and repeats, and somebody got a all black stallion horse. I mean, pictures looked amazing, you know what I'm saying? I mean, and then the way they dressing all gaudy and flamboyant, and you know
You know what's crazy? I mean, you said that, it made me realize in our community, we're living by these principles, just the inverse version.
yeah.
So instead of being selectively extravagant and prudently frugal, and selectively extravagant when it comes to, again, education, we're selectively extravagant when it comes to frivolous spending on champagne parties, proms, birthday
Mhm.
parties, entertainment at the end of the day. So we will spend extravagantly on entertainment, but then we want to be prudently frugal when it comes to education.
Mhm.
Do I
Right.
do I do I got do I gotta buy you this book?
Mhm. Right. Right. Right.
But hey, little Johnny, go check your room. He got every colorway of the Jordan that came out that weekend.
Mhm.
You know what I'm
And
saying?
and they all wearing. You notice they all wearing sneaks and Jordans with their
Right,
formal wear now.
right. You know, we know. Oh, Samantha, I got you some new clothes on your bed. She got the full Gucci suit. You know what I'm saying? And she's 16 years old, but it's like you said, she can't read, she can't write,
Can't count.
can't count, can't
She
comprehend,
don't understand if I give you a dollar bill
can't think.
and it's cost 35 cents, how much change I get back. They like,
Yeah,
huh?
facts.
Is ridiculous. It's this guy that's on TikTok. He goes around asking like these random questions like that. That shit just tickles me every time. I mean, it's sad,
And it
but
be basic stuff. It'd be like the ones that be blowing my mind. It'd be like it'd be basic geography. That's kind of like the geography one, because I remember, because every time they ask these questions, I go back to remember being in school, in elementary school, and because I remember we had to learn that.
yeah,
We had to learn the capitals of
I
every
still know
state.
my capitals. We had to know the capitals across the world.
We didn't go worldwide, but at my school we only went to states. But that's even doper that y'all went worldwide.
Hmm.
But I remember we had to know our geography. We had to know
Yeah.
these basic things about the country we lived in.
Yep. They asked name two countries. The motherfucker said Idaho and Kentucky. I was like, God damn, you think Idaho and Kentucky is a country? I was like, wow, man, this shit is just blowing my mind. This shit is just blowing my fucking mind. They like, what's the capital of the United States?
Right.
They like, I don't know that. I don't know that. I don't know. I don't know. Fucking, I don't know. Oh, you got me on that one.
The one that be catching me be like, What time is it if it's a quarter past 12?
Oh yeah, they be like 12:25. Like
Oh,
25 is a quarter. Like yeah, when you talk about money, yeah, 25 is a quarter. Yeah, but as far as we talking about the quarter of a 60-second clock,
and a lot of these individuals from time to time be
that's
quote unquote college educated people.
oh yeah. I already told you I got high school graduates that couldn't even spell them right, but
So we got to do better, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah, pretty much.
And the first step to us doing better is prioritizing the idea that wealth begins at home.
Yeah, that's
And
very important.
and wealth begins at home. It begins with the principles that you operate your house by. That's really ultimately what
Yeah,
it comes down to.
that's where it's at.
The principles you choose, you make the decision to operate your house by, so you can do what your parents did, which you know wasn't best because you said it wasn't best as you was growing up, and then when you became an adult. But for whatever reason, we lean back to that default programming to raise our kids up in the same, within the same breath.
Hmm.
But it's just like, no, we have to reimagine these principles that we are living through, and we now have 8. So look at the last week's episode, look this week episode, got the 8, and again, take baby steps. Figure out how you can implement these things in your own households, but you
Hmm.
have to do this if you want to not just survive in this world, but thrive in this world.
That part.